back at the very beginnings of teams, which was started by a priest, Father Caffarel, that Chris and John may have spoken about, some of the writings talked about when the very first married couples came to see him to talk about what could be done, and that started teams. And I think it's an important message for us today that the couples came to him and were asking about marriage and spirituality. And in his writings, he said he gave them the answer that he was taught, in his as a priest, and he had the lines all prepared, and he gave them the lines, and people walked away scratching their heads saying, well, that's all very good, but it's of no practical use to us. So then when the next couple came to see him, he, instead of giving them the prepared lines, he said, let us walk together and see. And in a sense, that's been one of the fundamental sort of basis of teams all the time, is that people are all on a journey and we're all going to walk together and see. We're not there just to tell people how to do things. Now, today in the church, especially in Australia, we call that synodality. Right?
Everywhere, really.
It's a new
catchword.
It's a new catchword, but essentially, synodality is let us walk together and see, and listen to people more than you're talking. And so, in a sense, there's this sort of thing where teams is, things are, you can sort of see some of the connections where in the past, teams where there were some hard line issues being pushed of this is the way to do things. Teams didn't fit with that because we're a gentle movement who walks with people. Today, that's exactly where the church is listening and walking with people, and that's basically the fundamental of the movement.
Before we go to a team meeting, we're invited to have what we call a sit down, which is really one of the core aspects of teams. And the sit down can be over a cup of coffee in the local cafe. It's where we just review our life the previous month together, but not in terms of, the lawnmower's broken down or the kids have caused babysitting problems. It's to do with us from the depths of our hearts. So we take that sit down to the team meeting, which is always around a table, well, preferably, and we share a meal as well, a simple meal. And one of the key things there is the sharing, as we call it, and it's really sharing our sit down with the rest of the couples, knowing that whatever we say will be treated with confidentiality and deep respect, and that we are listened to in silence, basically, respectfully. No questions, not at all. So there might be controversies in our relationship. We share them, but we don't expect to be counselled like a marriage counsellor.
And one other point is that our sit down, we choose as a couple what we want to share with others. It's not like it's all out there. Like, it is very much a considered, yes, we want to share this information with the team, or we don't. And but generally it is a safe place to share quite a lot. So that's, and also at the team meeting, we usually have a topic that we all agree on, and of course there's food. That's a very important part of it, whether it's just a simple sandwich or whether it's anything more than that. It's about just being around the table, very significant.
So I suppose we joined teams just after we were married. So it's the same year as we were married. So one of the things that teams has meant for us, in a sense, is it's been something that's grown as a movement with us. That at the time we joined, we were in a team with people who covered 3 generations. So there were people old enough to be our grandparents, people old enough to be our parents, and other couples who were at the same age as us. And one of the things, I think Teams is a very gentle movement, that there are things that prod you along, that turning up at a monthly meeting, there's this a little bit of a reason to do something that we'd probably put off if we didn't come to a monthly meeting. But Teams is sort of non-judgmental. It's something that just accepts people in the position that they're at the time. And so for us, a newly married couple, we knew nothing about anything really. And one of the things that we found wonderful was to have a group that we sort of walked with through our lives, sort of sense. And as we started to have children, we'd worry about things, and they said, "Oh, look, don't worry about that. That happened to us," and and things in the church that we were starting to struggle with. Other couples would say, "Yeah, we're struggling with that as well, and this is what we've done." So that sense of being part of something, but also sharing something a little bit more deeply with other couples, means that you can talk about things that are worrying you and feel that you have a sense of comfort that you're able to share those sorts of things. And Teams also has been something that's given us an impetus to read more, to talk more about the church. And I think just that sense that we might, in our meetings, walk through a book and do a chapter each meeting and discuss it. But it means that people in Teams tend to be a little bit more informed, not because they're any better in any way, but it's just you've got that rigor that every month you've got to come up with an opinion on something and think about something. And so it gives you that sort of push along to renew your faith, but also renew it in ways that you need to, that's right for you at the time, rather than something that's on someone else's agenda. So I've probably talked enough.
I suppose the big thing for us is that it's the couple that's the focus of the movement. It's really, I guess, been important in that aspect, because we, do lots of things in the church, but this is the one thing that we do together. This is the focus on us as a couple and how we're traveling, how we grow our faith, how we strengthen our marriage. And I think that's been a wonderful thing about Teams. And it is the focus on the couple. While the family is important, it really is a major thing that the couple are traveling well, and in that respect, then that will reflect in your family life. And it's one of the few organisations, I think, that just really works, I guess, helps the couple work on their relationship and grow their faith together and, I guess, journey through life together. So that's been a really key aspect that we've found. But then, of course, it's not just that you're doing it on your own, in our own little team or even in the wider movement. We're learning and sharing with other couples and growing together. And as Kevin said, as you experience different things in your life, you find other people have experienced those things too, and that they can give you support as well. So while there's spiritual support, there's also mutual support in the practical things of life. We'll help each other if a couple's or a member's sick or something. There's this real sense that we journey together. We become, we're a little community, but you do become like a family within the team itself. And I think something we've really noticed too is in our own life as a couple, that there's this real bond that exists anywhere where you meet a Teams couple. You suddenly feel this connection, and the wonderful hospitality we've experienced through Teams, and even we've been to some international events and met other couples, and you're welcomed into their home, and there's just something special about this community that you might meet a couple for the first time, and yet we're in Teams together, we know what we're about. And so I suppose it's that journey with like-minded couples, and I suppose the experiences we've had, just this richness of experience. Like Chris and John, we've been to an international gathering, about 9,000 people, haven't we? And it's just the most wonderful thing that people from all different cultures, walks of life. You know, this movement's working in Malawi and Africa and Ghana, and you know, it's shown itself to be adaptable to all sorts of cultures. So there's this real sense that we're all there on the journey together. That's been really positive in our life too.
Absolutely.
Yes. In fact, our team is a good example. We're only half Catholic, if you like, meaning that if you did the numbers, we have one couple who are Anglican, and we have 3 other couples who one partner is not Catholic.
Australian culture today is a mixing pot of people from other countries and other backgrounds, and teams can sort of draw on a bit of a richness from that internationality. For instance, in Sydney we have the Lebanese Maronites, who are an Eastern Rite Catholics, and you know, there's teams in Lebanon, so we've got material that they could use in Arabic. And it's just fine. And the cultural side of it, of people being able to do something in the church but is right with their faith. So they have a good connections back to Lebanon in teams. Similarly, with India, the Syro-Malabars are another branch of the Catholic Church, but not of the Latin Rite. And we have Syro-Malabars in India who are in teams. So, and we just recently, last year, had an international mass celebrated on the internet, available to everyone as a Syro-Malabar Rite mass. So people get sort of a bit of experience to different cultures, and it draws people in within Australia that they can sort of see that it's the church, but it's a bit of them is part of it as well. I think it's something that the priests find good, as well as the people in the team, because more often than not within the church, priests are sort of put upon a little bit that every time they turn up at a church event, they're the one that has to say the prayers. They're the ones that have to say some words of wisdom. And, you know, where do they go to just be themselves and relax as well? So one of the, I suppose, ground rules a little bit in teams is that the priest isn't there to perform. He's there as a fellow member of teams, bringing his background and his spirituality to the team in the same way as every other couple is. So and there are many examples where a priest has turned up to a team's meeting and they're just worn out. You know, they might have been spending with someone dying in hospital, and all they do at the whole meeting is just sit there and listen to everybody else, and that's just fine. Nobody is expecting them to do any more than be themselves and share of themselves.
Yeah, right.
I think too that it really helps in them understanding what couples and families live in their life in a really tangible way, and also for the couples to understand the life of the priest and what he's going through. And I think, as we talked about before, that confidentiality, there is that ability to share and, just as Kevin said, be yourselves, that you don't have to come along and plan the meeting or run the meeting, or in some cases the priest may say a mass for the family or for the couples for that meeting, but generally they're just fellow members of the team. So it's a wonderful opportunity for them just to be themselves and be able to share some of those things that they may find hard to share with other people.
Very often, mostly I would say, the partner, the still living widow or widower, continues in the team.
In the team. Yeah.
And the team wraps their arms around them and helps with that whole process in their lives.
But also, just like the rest of society, there are people who break up as well, despite best efforts for all sorts of, sometimes good reasons. People just find that they can't live with each other, and the couple, the team works out something as a way to be with both of them to the extent that they want it to happen.
Yeah. We may get 1 or 2 new teams each year, depending on where they're from. Or in the case of New Zealand, for example, there is a really considerable growth.
Is that right?
Amongst the younger people. And that's because they're being, a bishop is accompanying them on their journey, who's extremely enthusiastic and is driving them. The formation of teams through his diocese, through his office, and he's encouraging his fellow bishops to do the same. So New Zealand has something going for it we're not quite sure about.
There's a journey that the church is on at the moment worldwide, and for some countries they are effectively Catholic countries where the Catholic Church is the majority of people. For many English-speaking countries, the ones that we liaise with, they're not a Catholic country. The Catholic Church is the minority, and the Church has been battered around a little bit with it's some of its own problems that have been in the media. We see that in Ireland, where sexual abuse has been big, as it has been in Australia. We see some of these other issues, and to some extent, it's really caused problems for movements like ourselves talking about marriage, as a good thing. Now we're starting to see just those sort of little glimmers of hope really starting to happen, and it's really the doing of Pope Francis and the leadership of Pope Francis, where we're now starting to see more interest in marriage, more interested in marriage programs, and some of the organizations that are working in the marriage field, such as teams and the other ones that are working in the marriage field, are now sort of starting to work a bit more cooperatively and sort of thinking a bit more of, well, it's not just looking at one against the other. It's now sort of thinking, well, the people in the church, married couples, are on a journey, and at different parts of their married life, different things are important to them. And so it's important that the church has a collection of activities that people can get involved in.
Yeah.
So Teams is an important part of the mix. But Teams doesn't put itself out as being the only answer to everyone's question.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where the hope for Teams is coming, and we can sort of start to see it now in some countries where they're reaching out in the way that young people want to consume information, such as through the internet and the like.
Perhaps one example, though, or one exception to growth is in Sydney, where there's a lot of teams from the Maronite community, and it's thriving there. They seem to have huge communities and young families, and they've really been very successful in promoting teams, and they have great support from the clergy and the religious, and which does make a big difference. If you get that support and encouragement, it does make a big difference in how you forge ahead. So we've seen a lot of growth in that community, which has been really interesting to see how they've captured that spirit and really drawn couples in.